Good to see you. And I'm grateful that you joined, because in order to look at your screen, I had to look down on my screen. I realized that I wasn't recording the meeting.
Okay. It's a good thing then.
Yes.
Good timing.
So thank you for joining us just now. Yes.
Hi, Anwar.
Hi, Anthony.
Now, the myth-busting tool that we use in NEURO-SEMANTICS and NLP are the meta-model questions. So, for example, take the myth of leaders are only at the top. The meta-model questions that we ask: how do you know? So, another meta-model question: says who? How specifically? When specifically? What are you assuming? So I'm just sharing with you here 5 meta-model questions, because when you hear something, a concept, myths basically start off as a concept, a statement, and people buy into it. So using the meta-model questions, it allows us to look at the boundary conditions of that particular statement. And in that way, it allows us to identify the truthfulness or the falsehood of a certain myth. And one of the, I would say, practices that I practice in my life from the meta-model questions in the context of receiving certain information, a statement. When people make a statement, I ask myself if the inverse is true. Are there situations whereby the inverse of that statement is true? For example, asking the meta-model question of, does this always happen? Let's take the example of leaders have all the answers. So to ask the question, the inverse of that question, does this always happen? Do leaders always know the answers? The moment I answer the question, no, there are times that they don't have all the answers. Then that statement is blown out of the water. It's a myth, because there are situations, conditions that are operating outside that. Yeah? And asking the question, what about an event that happened outside of that statement? The statement of leaders have all the answers. And I think of a situation whereby I had this interesting experience. I was conducting a team building program for the staff of a company, not a big company at that time. It was about 40 people strong, and they were brainstorming on how to improve sales in the company, one of the exercises that we had. And the best idea that when it was threshed out and it was accepted by the president of the company came from the tea lady. So asking the question, do leaders have all the answers? That particular scenario gave me evidence, no. So this person, this lady, was not the leader of the company. However, she was the one who came up with the answer. So that allows me to look at the boundary condition to know in which situations that statement apply, in which situations that statement does not apply. And in that way, it allows me to break out of the constraint of that particular myth. So for me, the problem with leadership is the nominalization of the word, because the leadership, it becomes a noun. What's happening there? The verb is leading. The moment we put it as a noun, then it becomes very mysterious, and that causes people to make assumptions of what it is. So when I say the word leadership, so what image that comes to mind? And what I would like to share with you right now is that for years, the image that comes to my mind when people mention the word leadership are positional leaders. That's the image that comes to mind. A manager is a leader. A CEO is a leader. Ketua pengarah is a leader. Prime Minister is a leader. So that was the image that came to my mind for many years when people talk about leadership. And that was what preventing me from learning to become a leader for myself. So let's take a pause over here. I'd like to hear your opinion with respect to this bit. Go ahead and just unmute yourself and you can begin speaking. Anthony? Yeah, you wanted to say something?
No, I just unmute myself.
Okay, thank you. Anyone, would you like to say anything?
Mazuki, the tea lady story.
Yes.
Does it coincide with Ajinomoto?
No, I didn't work for a company that big. It was at that time it was a startup.
Okay.
They had the they had the president and the chairman, but they didn't have the CEO yet. So they engaged me.
May I share a classic story of Ajinomoto?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Apparently, what you said is true. At one point, when Ajinomoto was still starting up, they were trying to increase the consumption of Ajinomoto. There was a conference going on of the CEO and all the strategizing. So they're all talking about all kinds of things. So the tea lady was giving the tea and she asked permission to say, can I say something? So apparently she was a Chinese lady. She said, "Ayah, itu lubang ah, kasih besar sikit ah, mesti dia pakai lebih mah." So it was a simple thing. That means they make the dispenser, what you call a whole, dispenser a bit larger. So it is more than one story of a tea lady coming up with ideas. Likewise, I was in Australia doing a TQM program, and they were trying to do something. The newest person who joined the organization, a young lady, gave an idea which was very, very out of the box, because what happens to people within the organization is that their mind is more or less, as you said, trapped in the way of thinking. So this young lady was a new recruit. Because I'm Air Force, so this is an Air Force story. So she said, gave certain ideas, and the boss said, "Wow, that's fantastic," because she had a new look at the organization.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope that with those two examples, it put to rest some of these myths, so that we need to just bust them out of the water. Right? Okay. So let's move to the next point. What is leadership? Because I mentioned earlier that the reason why people are not able to fully understand leadership and bring it to their own lives is because they got caught in the nominalization of the word. And they created images in their mind about leadership. They are not useful. One of the image that I had in my mind about leaders are positional leaders. And because of that, I discount my own contribution to lead in an organization because I don't have that position. And this is something that many people face or live their life in that particular way. I'm not a leader because I don't have that position. So what is leadership? Leaders lead. So that's what leaders do. When we say lead, then we begin thinking about leading a person from point A to point B. So this is where we are now. So we are leading to point B. So when I have this definition of leaders leading self and others from point A and point B, then I have this picture of people in situations leading others. Right now, I have a picture of a mother duck crossing a road with little baby ducklings. So that process of leading the baby duckling is a role of a leader. So the mother duck is a leader. And similarly, I can think of moms at home leading the child from not knowing how to pee by themselves, they have to wear nappy, to the point whereby they can go to the toilet by themselves. Irene put in, are you sharing screen because I can see it? No, I'm not sharing any screen. That's okay. Because I like to see the picture of everyone in front of
okay,
me.
because you were saying right now, what about the mother ducklings? I thought you're sharing this. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
It's inside here.
Okay. Imagine it, visualize it. All right.
Yeah. So in the second example, whereby a mom helping the child from not knowing how to pee by himself, that he has to wear nappy, to the point where he is potty trained. He can pee by himself. Now he doesn't need any nappy to wear. That process is the process of leading someone from point A to point B. And by that definition, I would say that that mom is a leader. And that opens up the spectrum for leadership, that each and every one of us are leaders when we do things in the context of leading someone from point A to point B. Leaders are those who are responsible for their world. They are responsible for themselves, and they are also responsible for the others around them, whether those others around them are their family members or their colleagues at work or their clients. So when you lead someone from point A to point B, at that point, you are leading, and you can say that you are a leader at that point. So this is where situational leadership comes in, this concept of leading according to situations. So I would say that at one point when I was in the forest, the Kota Damansara Community Forest, I wonder, Mr. Mohan, if you've ever been here, we have a nice community forest over here. I was walking in the forest one day, and I noticed four young men looking haggard, tired. They are not more than 25-year-olds, and I came across them, and they said to me, "Bang, mana jalan keluar, bang?" They said that they've been walking in circles for a whole hour. They couldn't find their way out. So I said to them, "How long have you been here?" "Lebih daripada 1 jam, bang. Duk pusing. So I said, "Okay, I'm on my way out. Just follow me." So in that situation, I was a leader.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah? So leaders lead. Now, an interesting part about what I mentioned to you, leading from point A to point B, what is point B? So this is where, for me, I'm grateful about what I have learned from NEURO-SEMANTICS, is that typically most people talk about point B as the real world result. In the example of me leading those 4 hikers who were lost, the real world result was bringing them out of the forest. So that's the real world result. In the context of, let's say, organizations, to achieve a certain sales result for the company for that year, that's a real world results, a result that is tangible, that you can measure, what we consider as a hard result. So that's what I loosely term as real world result. Now, from the neurosemantics perspective, another element that is point B, as we are bringing people from point A moving towards point B, is the actualization of self. As I'm leading someone to a certain place, I am becoming a better person. And another element is not just actualizing self. As I'm leading someone from point A to point B, I'm also helping the person to actualize themselves, to become a better person, to be able to implement, to perform at a higher level, because now they have higher levels meaning. So from the neurosemantics perspective, when we talk about leading, it's not just about achieving the tangible results. It's about becoming a better person and helping others become a better person, to actualize the best in others. When I think about this element of actualizing the best in others, one thing that stood out for me, that really hit me to the very core, is why do we want to actualize the best in ourselves and in others? Why is this so, not just the word relevant, why is it so critical that we need to actualize our best self? One of the things that I love doing is, history. I hate history at school because we have to remember all the dates and names of places. I hate it because of that. However, later on, as I begin to read history, I begin to understand history as how we human beings have performed. I begin to enjoy them and begin to learn from them. And the thing about history is that throughout history, humans have been awful and cruel to other humans. From Australia, Asia, Europe, to Africa, to America, we see the historical events of human beings engaged in enslavement, in murder, in torture, in rape. These are the worst of human behaviors. And I ask myself, do I want this? Does the world want this kind of behaviors? My answer is no, I don't want this. Then what can we do to stop this? What is it that we want? Can we stop this? If we cannot, why not? So as I ask those questions of myself, what I begin to have a sense in my body and appreciation that these are behaviors of people who are not yet fully human. We come into this world, we grow to become a human. Human beings are the only species that need to learn to become a human. Animals, inbuilt in their DNA, they know how to become an animal. So animals who grow up in the wild, they are never confused. A dog knows it is a dog. A lion knows it is a lion. Human beings can confuse themselves. Because if the learning process is not right, they can confuse themselves thinking that killing is the right thing to do. So when I look at the history, how humans have been awful and cruel to other humans, I realize that this is just a feature of humans. The feature of human beings, that human beings desire to be above other human beings. It's just a feature, nothing good or bad about it. It is normal human desire. When it is driven in the right way, this desire to be above other human beings is what makes humans grow and develop. So the question is not this feature of being wanting to be better than other humans. The question is, what are the values and beliefs that drive this feature? So this is where human beings get into a fix. They get into a vicious cycle. If they desire to become better than other human beings from the perspective of at the expense of others, driven by the value that I don't care about others, I'm just going to take care of number one. If it is driven by that value, by that belief, then the worst of human behaviors will emerge. And the thing about the worst of human behaviors, it will keep coming into our lives. As human beings are being born, every minute, every second of the day, they are being born, and as they grow, and in their growth, they have not reached their full growth as a human being yet. So that phase is when human beings will continue to engage in this behavior of enslaving other human beings, in murder, in torture, in rape, in all of those behaviors that hurt or harm others. So going to the question of why actualize the best in self and others, it is so that we can produce humans that are fully humans, humans that serve other human beings, humans who take human life as sacred. Because when we have these humans who embody the best of human behavior, now we can have a check and balance in society. If we are not growing this self-actualizing human being, then society will be driven by people who will want to subjugate other people. So to me, what is leadership from NEURO-SEMANTIC's perspective? It is about achieving real-world goals, because in our life, we need to achieve those real-world goals. Because those real-world goals, things like better sales for the company, better profits for the company, creating an income in order to feed our family, those real-world goals are important in order for us to gratify our real-world needs, our physiological needs, our safety and security needs. Those real-world goals are important in that sense. However, leadership from NEURO-SEMANTICS goes beyond the real-world goals. It's about creating or developing people who are self-actualizing. So my understanding of leadership from NEURO-SEMANTIC's perspective is that leadership is about actualizing the characteristics of self-actualizing people. And I use the word self-actualizing because we as human beings will never be fully actualized. I remember, I can't remember who said it, is that what the person said was, God's gift to man is more talents that he can use in his lifetime. Man's gift to God is how much of that talent he can develop in his lifetime. So this process of self-actualizing is a never-ending story. We can continue to become better and better on a daily basis. It's just that from NEURO-SEMANTIC's perspective, what we are saying is that leadership is about actualizing the characteristics of people who are actualizing themselves. So what do we mean by characteristics of self-actualizing people? I've got with me about 6 or 7 examples from Abraham Maslow that he listed altogether 18 characteristics, if I'm not mistaken. Now, some of these examples of self-actualizing human being, one is the capacity for tolerating uncertainty. They are able to live with things that are uncertain. They don't need for guarantees in life. So people who are self-actualizing, they can tolerate uncertainty. Another example is they have an acceptance of self and also of others. They don't need to go fixing other people. They can accept people as they are, and they can accept their weaknesses and their mistakes, and at the same time continue on the journey of making themselves better. Next example of self-actualizing people is they have spontaneity and creativity. They can be spontaneous and they can follow forms or structures. At the same time, they have that ability to be spontaneous and creative. Another one is the need for private and solitude, detachment. Why? Because when they go away from society to be by themselves, away not in the context of physically, however, mentally and emotionally, they're able to detach themselves. Now their lives can be driven by the intention rather than being attentional to what's out there. Another characteristic of self-actualizing people is they have a capacity for deep and intense relationships. Another one is they have genuine caring and love instead of superficial care or love of others. And I would like to add one more at the bottom here because I do not want to go through all of them. The characteristic of self-actualizing people, they have a sense of humor and lightness about them. They're able to laugh at themselves when they fall down because that's another part of human nature. We make mistakes. Be able to say, whoops, that was a really stupid mistake that I made. And from there, they'll be able to learn instead of being bogged down by that mistake and being stuck in that. So these are some of the characteristics of self-actualizing people. In the context of leadership, from the NEURO-SEMANTICS perspective, we are saying that leadership is not just about to achieve that real world goal. That is important. It's just that in the journey of achieving those real world goals, we are helping we are helping ourselves and others to become better human beings. Okay, so let me pause there. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, just unmute yourself.
Mazuki, I think the big question that you put just now was, why should we actualize ourselves? Right? And that's a never-ending journey. And I guess sometimes the pitfalls we fall into is believe there is a destination. And there is no destination, it's a process.
Yeah.
And so the process requires us to be the best that we can be at any point in time in our lives. And of course, to be able to do that, one has to learn, one has to, relate to people. And that's the I guess, the challenge and the enjoyment of the journey of life.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big one. Why do we want to self-actualize?
Thank you, Anthony. And as you said that, a quote comes to mind. Somebody said that because self-actualizing people, they are continue to learn. So someone said that the more you learn, you realize that the more you don't know. And that's part of the journey of actualizing. Okay.
And then to realize that we even don't know what we don't know.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Which is bigger, which is probably about 9% of what we know. 9 times more than what we know.
Yeah. I was just reading a quotation. I can't remember. Was it from Michael's email or something that wisdom is not just about and he was quoting someone, wisdom is not just about knowing what you know, it is also knowing what you don't know. Because that gives you perspective.
But that's good. If you know what you don't know, that's useful. But sometimes, most of the time, we don't know what we don't know.
Yes. That's
the bigger world out there.
Yeah,
the bigger world out there. And you know, how does a leader operate in an environment? As you said just now, it says one of the myths says leaders have all the answers, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that leader doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to the next point is that in terms of the actualizing self-leadership from the perspective of NEURO-SEMANTICS, that is something that I will not be discussing this afternoon. I will just be mentioning it in passing, because what I would just like to mention in the time that we have is just to go into the skills that we can start off with that will allow us to be better equipped in our journey of self-actualizing. Now, before I go into that, just to mention the NEURO-SEMANTICS of actualizing self-leadership, it starts off with self-actualization psychology. To understand self-actualization psychology, if I were to detail that, we are talking about the hierarchy of needs, the meaning performance axis, the self-actualization quadrants, the matrix embedded pyramids. These are the models that are used in self-actualization psychology. So from NEURO-SEMANTICS, we can use these models in order to actualize our best self. And also from NEURO-SEMANTICS, we have the leadership criteria. There are altogether 3 being criteria and 4 doing criteria. And from the leadership criteria, to be able to create the leadership matrix. So these are the how-to of developing self-leadership and to be more actualizing as a person. For the rest of this afternoon, I would just like to mention about the essential leadership skills. And these skills are, I would say, to some extent underrated, and because of that, people overlook. The first skill is spoken communication. And why I say underrated, people tend to think that just because I know how to talk, that I have spoken communication skills. Okay? So spoken communication is about more than just sharing ideas or information. For leaders, communication is the most fundamental skill that he or she can possess when it comes to leading an individual or a team. Leaders should be able to communicate effectively, not just with individuals, also with groups. Individual communication poses a problem in itself. Group communication poses additional problems. So when leaders have the skill of spoken communication, they're able to handle these two. And when we talk about group, I'm also bringing it down to the very level of the father and mother at home. You are talking to a child and you are talking to your children. So that's also group dynamics coming in. So the skill of spoken communication. It's one thing to speak, and another thing entirely to have people know exactly what you mean. So good communicators express themselves clearly without creating confusion or ambiguity. So going into the specific of things. A good communicator also understands communication going both ways. So being a good listener is part of spoken communication skill. I had the experience just yesterday the whole afternoon, I spent my time in a magistrate court, and I was just watching this particular magistrate, and I was in awe of her communication skill. She was able to break down legalese into language that people understand. Legalese, only legal people understand those language. And the charge sheet is written in legal language. So imagine the person reading the charge to the person being accused and asking the person, do you plead guilty or not guilty? Many times when the person reading the charge, different people being charged, when I put myself in their shoes, I say, I don't understand that. However, this particular magistrate, she broke it down into simple, everyday language. She broke it down into that. And by breaking it down into simple, everyday language, it gets the person to understand. Yeah, so this is spoken communication. And I hope that I can get into her court again just to see how she speaks to the people, to be able to do that. Very powerful, soft-spoken, very caring, wanting to get at the heart of the issue so that she does not create an injustice when she passed the sentence. Wow, that was a very interesting experience that I had yesterday. Now, the second skill is the skill of non-verbal communication. Being a good communicator also means transcending the written and verbal communication. An excellent communicator will convey a sense of openness and non-judgment, even when they're not saying anything. The body gestures and general bearing can convey even more than words. Leaders are required to be intrinsically calm, open, optimistic, and positive. And all of this, calmness, open, optimistic, positive, it comes through the non-verbal. And that was what I got from that magistrate yesterday. As she was saying those words, I can sense from her that caring, that openness, that wanting to know what is exactly happening in your life before I pass the sentence. So that's the non-verbal communication. The third essential skill is the skill of coaching. In today's day and age, I keep on saying to people, coaching is a non-negotiable skill for leaders. Managing people means supporting subordinates. It's not just about telling. It's about helping them. It's about enabling them to do their jobs well. If I, as a leader, don't understand them, don't know how to coach them, I will not help them to move forward in their career. So coaching means, so when I'm leading, it means that to help them to improve their skills so that they can become better and better and they can improve. So if I don't have that skill of coaching, they cannot improve the skill, they cannot improve their life, they cannot improve their job. And because of that, they will not be able to improve the results in the organizations. So as a leader and a coach, at times it means assisting them to develop their own communication and leadership style. Whatever the work, adopting a coaching mindset, that is an integral part of the mindset of a leader. A coach supports and encourages the people that they lead. A coach is sometimes need to be the cheerleader. You need to be the part-time trainer at times, to lead at times, because the business environment can be so uncomfortable, especially at this time. We have MCO 3.0. It is not very comfortable to a lot of people. So a leader knows how to coach others to become leaders in their own right. One of the cliche, I would say cliche, however, I tend to buy into that concept, that statement. It is easier to lead a group of leaders than to lead a group of just pure followers. The fourth skill is the skill of delegation, making a sense of a project and giving direction doesn't come naturally to everyone, but it's an integral part of leadership. Leaders should be able to clearly and effectively make each task clear. In a project, there are many tasks involved. And when people are not clear about the tasks, they are not able to do that very well. So to be able to delegate people, to be able to do those tasks well. And when subordinates are clear about what's expected of them, that delegation is then what we call effective. And because they are clear, they're able to do it well. And I have been in an working with an organization that after 16 years of implementing their vision for this is not just a normal organization, this is a governmental organization. They had a 17-year vision. And at the end of that 17 years, they went through the KPIs and they made a conclusion. We failed to achieve our KPI. And I was part of the team that was engaged by that particular country to go in and look at their KPIs. And the stunning thing that came to me from the senior government officials in that country as we facilitated their discussion, the one thing that stood out for me was that our people didn't know how to coach their people, the subordinates. That's why the people who are supposed to perform the work to fulfill their KPIs were not effective. So that was the major, one of the major improvement that they will bring into the performance management system is the coaching culture. So leaders need to have the skill of coaching and delegation and coaching. And finally, the fifth, I would say, essential skill is the skill of building relationship building. So along with communication, coaching, relationship building is what makes or break that particular connection. Yeah? A good leader will value relationships and work with the team to build strong, whether small or large teams, and work together with the people inside there. Now, relationship is not just about knowing a few details about people. It is about understanding what makes people tick, what are their values, what are their beliefs, and to be able to harness all of that in the direction of where the vision of that organization is going. To build relationship with people so that people can work towards the goal of the organization, feeling included, feeling fully engaged. Building relationship is about being authentic. It is about authenticity and genuinely connecting with people that creates that familiarity and community. So these are 5 essential skills, and there may be others that we can bring to the pot. However, what I've mentioned here is that 1 is the skill of spoken communication, 2 is the skill of non-verbal communication, 3 is the skill of coaching, 4 the skill of delegation, and 5 the skill of relationship building. So, any comments or questions? Go ahead, Jessica, if you are there.
No.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you.
I just want to say hi, I'm back.
Thank you. Yes, Anthony?
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, you put number 5 as building relationships. one key quote I remember from John Maxwell. I know everybody knows John Maxwell or not. John Maxwell is, you know, a very experienced leadership trainer, developer, coach. Many years ago, when I was running that program, one of the things he said is that never make the situation more important than the relationship. A very powerful one, huh?
Powerful.
And so the leader needs to know how to balance that. But definitely never make the situation more important than the relationship. And as I wrote that down just now, just to remind myself to say it, then I said, oh my God, so what was more important in the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates relationship? Then after 27 years, they've decided on divorcing each other, yeah? Yeah, so the leader has got to know how to fine tune that and bring in that situation. Huh? Interesting.
Thank you for raising that, Anthony. For me, I would say quite a couple of years ago, I made the decision to focus on relationships. And one of the things that I do is to look around at the relationships that people have, whether it is father-son relationship or mother-daughter-son relationship, parent-child relationship, or spousal relationships. And the reason why I do that, because I want to celebrate relationships, because relationships are what holds we humans together. When I first read the news about Bill and Melinda Gates, I put it away because it hurts me too much. It's just that, okay, I'll just respect what they have gone through. I don't know what they have gone through. It's just that for me, I've come to the point whenever I see relationships breaking, it hurts me. So a leader is one who builds relationships with the people.
May I say something?
Yes, please.
You see, the point you mentioned on the relationship and coaching, actually these two elements for me help to build synergy. The two combined, that means relationship and coaching, help to build synergy in the team. Without these two, there's only managing. You're managing people, delegating, but you're not leading. Some time ago, there was a program called Leader Manager, because they want the manager to be also a leader. Many of the managers strict. I mean, you got KPIs, yes, you got KPIs. You tell the guy you haven't achieved your KPIs. But now, if you hold his hand and tell him how to achieve those KPIs, that's already stepping into the area of coaching.
Yes.
And when you are coaching him, word goes around. Because in the process of coaching, you build a relationship with the person. And then next time around, you still hold his hand and guide him. Because I think these two elements combined are very important in the whole thing. And then the skills, you can't do the coaching and you can't do the thing without communication. So it's all sort of a jigsaw puzzle that has to be linked up.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mohan. Very important point. And when I gave the example of that particular country, looking at the performance management system, how they got to that point, that the key is not to revamp the performance management system. The key is to inject coaching into that, because what happens is that they have the high level organized country KPI. The issue is when they come to align it with the work that people do. And what happens is that as they align it, people at various levels, because they don't fully understand the KPI and they don't know how to align it, they just throw the KPI to the subordinate and say, do.
Yeah, right.
So what
something like the military, something like in the armed forces.
What I understand from KPI from a lot of companies is like that, Mazuki. They throw the KPI to the people and say, hey, you must achieve. Bye. Then they go.
Yeah. So the point that Mr. Mohan made just now and my experience in that particular country is that through that relationship process, as you delegate that KPI to that person, you create that relationship, you begin to have a conversation. Only then you realize what the person understands, what the person doesn't understand. In that way, only in that way can the person receiving the KPI know fully what I'm supposed to do. If there is that conversation doesn't happen, a guy receiving his KPI will just assume what it is, and that was what preventing them from achieving their goals in the first place. So very important.
Chibazuki, was this country very bureaucratic?
I wouldn't say bureaucratic, because what struck me about that particular, when they had that facilitation process, they took the senior officers from every ministry. So we had something like about 150 people in that facilitation process. And what struck me was the sincerity of these officers wanting to solve the problem for the country. So if I were to look at that kind of behavior, then I wouldn't say it's democratic. It's a bureaucbecause,
because bureaucracy comes in the way.
Because I can sense the sincerity in each and every one of them to go to the root cause of the issue and solve it for the country. I was totally blown away by these government officers.
Interesting project.
Not Malaysia, right? Oops.
I can say categorically no. Okay, right. So let's just wrap up our discussion for this afternoon, because now we've gone past the our mark already. So if I want to wrap up the discussion for this afternoon, I would just want to say that leadership is about actualizing the characteristics of self-actualizing people in us and in others. So this is where in NEURO-SEMANTICS we talk about apply to self first. It is not about teaching people to become self-actualizing. It's about me actualizing my best self and influencing the people around me to actualize their best self. Because the outcome of doing that is that the best of human behavior will come out. Self-actualizing people will behave in the best human behavior. They will come up with that behavior. When we do not actualize our best self, then we are left with people who are not yet fully human. They have not learned to become fully human yet. The best human behavior are not there yet. And that is why the worst of human behaviors come out. And what happens when these people lead the world? You have it. Slavery, murder, torture, rape. So that's what happened when we do not lead people to actualize their best self. So what I would just want to say is that leadership begins with self, and to actualize the characteristics of self-actualizing people in myself. And I continue that in influencing others in the same way. So that's probably what I would just like to summarize our discussion for this afternoon.
Thank you. I couldn't help it but observe behind you there are a couple of cameras in your shelf. You must be an avid photographer.
Yes, I plead guilty.
as charge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Do invite me for the next session.
Yes, I will. So
I enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it.
thank you very much. So do you have any final words? Because I'm going to go to each and everyone if you have some final comments to make before we end our session. So Mr. Mohan.
I teach leadership, and I have added a couple of points to my notes here from you, especially the self-actualization part, which is missing from my training. So it was useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. When you said that, I had goosebumps.
Okay. No. It is really an important element. I mean, we've studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the top of that is self-actualization. But then, how do we apply that self-actualization? You have touched on that point. That is very interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan. Appreciate that. Thank you. Faisal?
As for me, what I can say is leader is leader is a genuine person. They do it with their whole heart. I telling this because I'm look through the years of my employment history. I can say there's only 2 of my bosses are true leader, and one of them I stay with him today.
Oh, that's a powerful impact that he has on you.
Yeah, wherever he goes, I say, boss, bring me together, bring me along, boss.
Wonderful experience. Thank you, Faisal. And Dr. Anwar, if I may go to you.
Yes, Marzuki. I just want to make 2 points. One is this legacy issues. Some organizations, even countries, they have that certain leader must have certain characteristics, right? And then you see the emerging leaders like in New Zealand and some of the Scandinavian countries, they take up this they appoint these young leaders like 30s and 40s become prime ministers and president, and they seem to be doing better than the 70s and 60s years old leaders, right? So I think countries and organizations must be open to that, bringing in new leaders, whichever way you define it, and give them space to put their ideas and thoughts across. Yeah, basically, is that I also want to say.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar. Appreciate you being here. We have 2 Irene in this room today, so I go to Irene Chung first.
Hi. Okay. The reason why I off my video is because my background is not my normal. If I do a training, I wouldn't. Okay. Anyway, so when we talk about leadership, it brought to my mind about the book From Good to Great. You have heard about it by Jim Collins, and I like the sense that he said that leadership, his own interpretation of the level 5 leader, is a paradoxical blend of both willpower and humility. So being humble doesn't mean, sometimes we view humility as a sign of weakness. It's like, oh, you're very soft, you kowtow to your people. That is not humility in his definition. But humble humility in his definition is your ability to admit your mistakes and to learn from your people. Like what you say, Marzuki, that leaders cannot claim to know everything. So sometimes you learn from your people, get down to the grassroots, ask questions, and that's what I learned from it. At the same time, they are also extremely resilient. That's why the willpower, extremely resilient. They are decisive and able to make effective decisions and be respected by their people, and very respectful of their people as well.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Lots of points there. Thank you for sharing all of this. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah, welcome.
I'll move on to Anthony.
Hi. I think one of the things I've learned in the course of doing this work on leadership and all of that is that leadership is everyone's business. It's not the leader's business. It's not the tea lady's business, but it's everybody's business. Then if we accept that idea, then all of us would have to work to be a leader wherever we are, even if we are a tea lady. Yeah. And for leaders to respect each other as leaders also, because one of the key, missions, or as Anwar said, one of the legacies of the leader is to develop leaders. Yeah. And if you don't develop leaders, then I like what John Maxwell said. How do you know you're a leader? How would you know if you're a leader? Yeah. And he said the answer is very simple. Is anybody following you? If you're a leader and nobody is following you, then you're not a leader. Yeah. So yeah, leadership is everyone's business, and leaders got to develop leaders. That's the key, I think. Yeah. And then you get the thing propagating.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah. So when you mentioned that John Maxwell's definition of a leader, how do you know you're a leader? I started laughing because he said that, look behind you, is anybody following? If no one's following, that's the part that I laugh. Then you're just having a walk in the park.
Yeah, yeah.
So good reminder that. Okay. So moving on to Irene Chu.
Very good sharing actually, because I actually like the self-actualization, because I think everybody has it in them, the hidden potential, I would say, because that's just to me, when you mention self-actualization, the Maslow hierarchy came into mind, where the most basic one is basically the basic need. When you meet the basic need, that's when you really have time to think about your potential and how you can actually utilize that. And I also tend to agree with Anwar as well, because it's actually a mindset change right now, because leadership from now and leadership from, let's say, like 10 years ago is very different. It's actually how you build the relationship with your team, because everybody is supposed to be, to me is supposed to be on par, where we can actually learn from each other. It's not like I'm a leader, I lead, you listen, those sort of things. So it's basically sharing and learning from each other, because that's when you can actually grow yourself as well, and that's how you build from there. And relationship, to me, building the relationship is very important in any team, to actually grow for success, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you for sharing that. I muted my mic just now because there's a very loud thunderstorm going outside.
Yeah, my side here is also the thunder. It's
Yeah.
not yet.
And it's coming to my way.
Mazuki,
Yes.
there's one relevant experience which is very short I'd like to share. I had a chief of the Air Force whom I was working for in my younger days. And he said, Mohan, you always come to me with problems. You think I'm Superman, I cannot solve all these problems. He says, can you come with one or two ideas or suggestions on how we can solve the problem? He said, all I got to do is make a decision and empower you to implement the decision. So that was very early in my career that I got that from my chief.
Yes.
So I think as you said, he admitted he cannot solve all the problems. So the myth that you mentioned is relevant to the myth.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving another evidence against that particular myth. So last but not least, Jessica.
Yes. Nice to meet everybody here. So I have truly very agreed with if you are a leader and you claim yourself as a leader, and when you look at your back, it's like no one's at your back. So this is very important, and I'm seeing quite a lot of my clients, they are managing, they are not leading. So this is very important. They are the boss in the company, and they trying to manage, and they use the way they know to manage, but they thought it's leading. So they kind of confused about why my team, why my staff, they are like this, they are like that, and they're not listening, insubordinate, and why they have all this problem. Uh, but then they forgot they actually is managing, but they are not leading. So um, they said we happy for feedback, but when the staff giving them feedback, they piss off. so, so that is what I'm seeing. A lot of young entrepreneurs, so they are kind of needed the skills of leading. People learn manage. Manage is not hard. You have KPIs, you have criteria, you have your SOPs in place. You can very well manage, but not that managing, but one things that I come to know in leader, you also need to have the heart of accepting feedbacks, and able to inspire. I think this is more important. While you building the relationship can't stay if you don't accept feedback. Everybody have their own opinion and feedback, and if a leader, they are small heart, I said, not big heart. So you may can accept any of the opinion. I have come to bosses asking, Jessica, they are giving me nonsense. I say, yeah, you know it's nonsense, but this is not nonsense to them. That is because their understanding level is that level only. You are higher level. That's why to use become nonsense. But to them is important. Just accept it. If you can handle it, handle. If you can't, then tell them what is the reason. I think this is a good way for solving lah. That is what I'm trying. In my life, I help companies to do SOPs and solve their management problem. But most of the time, I'm seeing the management have, yeah, rules have problem, but their leading style and attitude have bigger problem than management.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. And
You
so,
know, Mazuki,
yes.
when Jessica was talking about that situation, Jessica, really, it reminded me of a key NLP supposition, right? The meaning of my communication is the response I get. So if I'm getting nonsense from my people,
Yeah, I have come to a boss telling me, Jessica, they keep on telling me nonsense. I'm like, okay.
well, that means what did they communicate? Because the simple principle guideline is that the meaning of your communication is the response you get. That's key, actually, yeah. And I've used this all the time to remind myself, and that's how we can remind ourselves to make sure that we really clearly understood, because feedback is always telling you how you communicated it. But one of the things also that came up from what Jessica said was that this leadership gurus, Kuzos and Posner, that I follow quite a bit, they did research all over the world in every industry, every country, every levels of leadership, right? And of the 5 practices of leadership that they talk about, the one leadership quality they found that's really lacking in almost every leader is the ability to inspire their people. Most leaders just don't know how to do that. And yet, the inspiration or inspiring people is giving people the why of what they're doing, the why of being, the why of leading, and all of that, you see. And sadly, that is the weakest quality of all leaders. The ability, not all, most leaders, the ability to inspire others, actually. So that's why, Jessica, you said, they're not inspiring their people. So they haven't not given their people the why of the business and what they need to do.
Yeah, and they all telling too busy. I'm very busy with my daily already. They're supposed to do their job. That's all we listen. Then when I tell them a story of I saw it in a YouTube. I think it's an Australian hotel. It's a boutique hotel. There is a Filipino cleaner. She's just a cleaner in the hotel. So this story was shared by the hotel owners. He said every day he saw his cleaner clean happily. Okay, have you ever seen cleaner clean happily? She's like very enjoying her job, and she's singing. And then one day the boss is very curious, go and ask her, why are you are just a cleaner, and cleaner is supposed to be the lowest level of the job in the job level. And I say, why are you so happy? He never seen a cleaner so happy before. Then she said, oh no, because I saw the lady then she said she is enjoying seeing the customer came to the hotel and staying for so happy and enjoying the cleanliness in the hotel. She's so happy. She said she's happy to clean the place. Therefore, the customer can stay so happily in the hotel. This is something I think leaders should able to inspire, and people can have knowing what is their why in their heart, not the leader's heart. you know and I'm seeing luckily I learned meta NLP. Thank you for Chengu for learning, and I have learned some of the skills to do that. Yeah.
So thank you very much, everyone. We are coming to 4 o'clock, so I really appreciate the comments that you made and for being here. So let me just mention you by name. Thank you, Mr. Mohan, Faisal, Anthony, Irene Chung, Irene Chiu, and Jessica, and Dr. Anwar. He had to leave earlier. And Hashim, I hope he gets home safely. I hope that he switched off from our Zoom because maybe he was conflicting with his driving. So thank you for being here. I hope that you've gained something that is useful for yourself. And oh yes, just to let you know that next week, Thursday, we won't be having any session because it will be Hari Raya next week. So,
Yeah, Selamat Hari Raya.
So Selamat Hari Raya, everyone.
Yeah, Selamat Hari Raya.
Selamat Hari Raya.
Stay safe with this MCO. Take your safety and your family safety seriously, and kita jaga kita.
Yeah.
So thank you, and God bless you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mazuki.
Thank you.